Your e-bike can have pedals, a clean factory frame, and even a legal-looking sticker and still raise red flags with police. They do not always need to open the motor or test the battery. Small details in the way the bike looks, moves, and responds can reveal far more than most riders realize. And some of those clues take only seconds to spot. Number 1. The pedal illusion. Ask 100 riders what makes something a bicycle and 90 of them will say pedals. It is the most widespread belief in the entire category, and it is the least reliable. Pedals are the entry requirement, not the verdict. Federal language says fully operable. British regulations say capable of propelling the vehicle. Both phrasings exist specifically because manufacturers figured out that bolting cranks onto a small electric motorcycle makes it look compliant in a product photo. Officers are trained to look past the shape. Are the cranks positioned where a human could realistically drive the machine, or are they decorative? Is there a bicycle saddle and seat post, or a motorcycle bench seat with the cranks tucked underneath at an angle nobody could pedal? Are those pegs where pedals should be? Oregon transport advocates put it bluntly in public guidance. E-motos may have functional pedals, fake pedals, or pegs instead of pedals, and none of that changes the classification. The clearest example came out of Orange County, California. Prosecutors alleged a father helped his 12-year-old son convert a lightweight electric dirt bike by swapping the pedals for motorcycle pegs, cutting the speed governor, and rewiring the system. Inspection put peak output around 5,000 watts and top speed near 60 miles per hour. The boy ran a red light and was struck by a car. He survived with a fractured skull. The father was charged with felony child endangerment. The bike had pedals when it left the factory. That fact protected nobody. Number 2. The label that proves nothing. In the 40-odd states running the class system, manufacturers must permanently attach a label showing the classification number, the top assisted speed, and the motor wattage. California even specifies the font and the point size. Officers know exactly where to look, usually near the head tube, the down tube, or the battery housing. So riders assume the sticker settles the argument. It doesn't. It opens it. A label is a manufacturer's claim about a bike in its factory condition. The first thing an officer checks is whether the machine in front of him still matches that claim. A 350-watt sticker on a hub the size of a dinner plate raises a question immediately. So does a Class 1 label on a bike with a thumb throttle, and there's a second layer to this that almost nobody knows about. In California, Florida, Colorado, Minnesota, Massachusetts, and Illinois, it is a separate violation to modify an e-bike speed capability or motor engagement without replacing the label to reflect the change. The rule exists precisely because unlocking a bike and leaving the old sticker on creates a false document attached to a vehicle. Then there is the reverse problem. Advocacy groups tracking this have noted that classification stickers on the fastest machines are frequently absent altogether or deliberately mounted somewhere out of sight, tucked under the seat, which tells an experienced officer something all by itself. A missing label doesn't prove a bike is illegal, but it guarantees a longer conversation, and in several states it means the machine can be treated as an unclassified device and impounded while that gets sorted out. Number 3. The idea that nobody can measure watts on the street. This is the most confident myth in the whole category. You'll find it in comment sections everywhere, usually phrased as a certainty. No patrol officer is carrying a dynamometer around in the boot, and no patrol officer knows the difference between a controller and a cadence sensor, so the argument ends there. Case closed. Two problems with that. The first is that most riders misunderstand which number the law even uses. Marketing loves peak power because a bike advertised as 1,000 watts peak sounds faster than one advertised at 750. But the legal figure, in the United States and under European testing standards alike, is the continuous rated output, the sustained number, which means a listing that shouts about peak wattage is often quietly telling an investigator that the rated figure was worth hiding. The second problem is that the equipment showed up anyway. Nottinghamshire police in England now use a compact dynamometer sourced from Switzerland and funded through the local police and crime commissioner's office that measures a vehicle's genuine unaided top speed at the roadside with no test track and no laboratory required. In one stretch between early November and early January, that unit contributed to 34 seizures, with 24 riders facing court proceedings for no license or no insurance. Norfolk police describe their process in similar terms. They look at what speed the machine is capable of, what power the motor has, whether the throttle sits outside specification, and whether the correct markings are present. That is not guesswork. That is a checklist, and the results scale. Police Scotland seized close to 300 machines in 9 months, describing bikes that began life as ordinary pedal cycles before someone added a motor capable of 40 miles per hour to a frame whose brakes were never designed to stop that. Devon and Cornwall police opened a dedicated operation in Plymouth and took 7 bikes off the road on the first morning, several of them modified past 40. The pattern is consistent. The machines that get seized are rarely exotic. They are commuter bikes with the wrong parts inside. Number 4. The throttle question. In Britain, the throttle is close to decisive. A legal electrically assisted pedal cycle provides help only while you pedal. A twist-and-go control that drives the bike beyond walking pace, roughly 3.7 miles per hour, pulls the vehicle into the approval regime entirely. Without that approval certificate, it isn't lawful for road use. Whatever the pedals suggest, in America the throttle is legal but bounded. Class 2 may use 1 up to 20. Class 3 is pedal assist to 28, and a throttle that pushes you past 20 on its own breaks the classification. So officers watch for one specific thing at a junction. Did the machine pull away while the crank stayed still? A rider sitting motionless as the bike accelerates from a standstill has answered the question without a word being spoken. Number 5. Ghost pedaling. This is the signal that survives every disguise, and the reason a genuinely normal-looking bike gets stopped. The British enforcement guidance issued to police forces lists it first among the red flags. A rider traveling at speed without pedaling, acceleration inconsistent with normal assisted cycle behavior. You can hide a controller, you can lose a sticker. You cannot hide the mismatch between how fast your legs are moving and how fast the world is moving past you. At 30 miles per hour on an unrestricted bike, a rider's cadence looks lazy, almost bored. Trained officers pick that up from 100 meters away, and honestly, so do experienced cyclists. It is one of those things you cannot unsee once someone points it out. There's a companion signal listed right alongside it, and it's the one riders hand over voluntarily. Statements from the rider regarding modifications. A conversational remark about how quick the bike is or where the previous owner got it tuned becomes part of the assessment the moment it's said out loud. Now to the part that catches people who genuinely thought they were compliant. Number 6. The screen on your handlebars. Plenty of bikes ship with a menu. Somewhere in the display settings, there's an option labeled off-road or unrestricted or race mode, or a wheel size field that can be halved. Riders treat this as a feature for private land, which sounds reasonable. Enforcement guidance treats it very differently, where a vehicle includes a mode allowing higher motor-assisted speeds, or can be configured to exceed the limit, it does not meet the requirements. Not while switched, where the switchable capability exists. Ride that again, because it reframes everything. The bike parked outside your house, in its legal setting, untouched all week, can still fall outside the definition because of a menu option you've never opened. American law is converging on the same logic. Utah became the first state to write programmable e-bikes into statute, requiring multi-mode machines to be labeled at the highest class they are capable of reaching. Washington moved in 2026 to exclude products designed to be easily configured outside e-bike requirements. And officers are told explicitly to look for visible mode settings on the vehicle, which is why a quick glance at a handlebar display has become a standard part of the stop. Number 7. The bike that reports itself. Tuning dongles are a large, open industry. Small modules that intercept the speed signal, convince the system the wheel is turning slower than it is, and let assistance continue well past the cutoff. They're sold openly across Europe for the major motor platforms. The manufacturers noticed years ago, Bosch systems run anti-tampering detection through onboard sensors. When manipulation is detected, the drive throws an error code and drops into a reduced power emergency mode. A rider can clear it by riding roughly 90 minutes, but the check repeats. After the third time, the only way out is a dealer with the official diagnostic tool, and the popular workaround leaves its own signature. Several unlock methods that spoof the wheel signal cause newer systems to display roughly half the real speed. So the screen reads 14 while the bike does 28, and the odometer quietly undercounts every mile. Think about what that means at the roadside. An officer doesn't need to prove the motor is oversized. A display reading half the observed speed, or a service history full of tamper codes, does the work for him. California even extended its ban on speed modification products to cover software applications, not just physical parts. The machine keeps the receipts. Number 8. Hardware fingerprints. Officers are told to watch for aftermarket displays and aftermarket controllers, and the reason is simple. Factory e-bikes are tidy, wiring runs inside the frame, connectors match. Everything is molded, clipped, and integrated. A converted or upgraded bike rarely looks like that. There's a black controller box cable tied to the down tube, thicker phase wires running to the hub because the original harness couldn't carry the current, a battery pack that doesn't sit in a purpose-built cradle, a voltage figure printed on the case that sits well above what a 750-watt system would ever need. None of this is illegal on its own. Home building is a legitimate and genuinely brilliant corner of this hobby, and plenty of conversions are perfectly compliant. But visual mismatch between a modest label and serious hardware is exactly the kind of inconsistency that turns a wave through into an inspection. Number 9. The paper trail you left online. This one still surprises people. The strongest evidence about a bike's capability is frequently the seller's own marketing. Product listings quote peak wattage and unrestricted top speeds because those numbers sell. Screenshots of those listings sit in enforcement case files. Forum posts, unboxing videos, and social clips of a speedometer reading 40 have all made appearances. Institutions are formalizing this. British trade bodies launched a trustmark register of audited brands verified to sell only road-legal machines, giving officers a provisional green flag when a bike carries a listed badge. California has moved toward requiring the Attorney General to publish a list of devices commonly sold as e-bikes that don't meet legal requirements, specifically so schools and police departments have something concrete to check against. The roadside conversation increasingly starts with a phone, not a wrench. Number 10. They may not need to stop you at all. Enforcement has stopped depending on the traffic stop. Humberside police in England deployed drones to identify riders and direct ground units toward them. Parker, Colorado launched an anonymous online portal so residents can report reckless riding, building a crowdsourced map before an officer ever leaves the station. Eugene, Oregon runs something similar. Impound powers have expanded to match. Utah's law, effective in May 2026, lets officers impound and hold a device when a minor is riding outside safety rules. California authorized local police to impound unclassified electric devices for a minimum period. In parts of England, seized machines are simply crushed, and prosecution has become specialized. Orange County established a dedicated e-bike and e-motorcycle prosecution unit and has filed child endangerment charges against multiple parents, including one case where a mother faces charges after her 14-year-old struck an 81-year-old man. In Contra Costa County, parents were charged after their teenage son crashed a lightweight electric dirt bike into a minivan. One county force in Lancashire passed its 1,000th seized machine under a single long-running operation, backed by a dedicated fleet of police motorcycles bought specifically to reach the off-road tracks and cut-throughs where riders escape patrol cars. And there's a consequence attached to that which almost nobody sees coming. Because these machines are legally motor vehicles, riding one without insurance or a license carries the same weight as doing it in a car. Britain's licensing agency can hold penalty points on what officials describe as a ghost license, sitting dormant on a young rider's record until the day they apply for a provisional. Teenagers have arrived at their first driving lesson, already carrying points from a bike they were riding at 15. Riding away from a stop no longer ends the story. It just moves it. Now, the honest counterweight, because this is genuinely messier than enforcement press releases suggest. Police have been struggling with these definitions as badly as riders have. The British guide now circulating to traffic officers exists because a trade body wrote to every chief constable and discovered the most common answer was that forces didn't know how to interpret what was legal. Officers were making judgment calls on machines nobody had trained them to assess. There are fairness questions too. During California hearings, one assembly member warned that registration proposals could lead to children being stopped for unregistered bikes with no realistic way to prove ownership, and raised concerns about over-policing in Black and brown communities. Advocacy groups argue the crackdowns catch compliant commuters while the genuinely dangerous machines keep circulating, because the supply chain remains wide open. Both things are true. The enforcement is inconsistent, and the machines it is aimed at are real. So where does that leave you, practically? 3 questions answer almost everything. What is the continuous rated power of your motor, not the peak? At what speed does assistance actually cut out, measured rather than assumed? And does your bike have any mode, menu, app, or module capable of taking it past its labeled class? If you can answer those 3 cleanly, you're fine, and a roadside conversation stays a conversation. If you can't, the exposure runs further than a ticket. Motor vehicle insurance follows the vehicle, so a machine that was never a covered vehicle may not be covered at all. Homeowners and renters policies commonly exclude motorized vehicles outright. A serious injury claim can be investigated down to the controller settings, and in several states, parents can be held civilly liable for a child's crash. The financial consequences arrive long after the impound fee. None of this is an argument against electric bikes. They remain one of the most quietly transformative machines of the last 2 decades, and the vast majority on the road are entirely legal and used exactly as intended. But the category grew faster than the definitions, and the definitions are catching up now. The riders who come out of this comfortably are the ones who know what their own machine actually is, rather than what the box said, photograph your label. Learn your rated power, check your menus, then go ride.